Hello everyone, and welcome to Parshat Achrei Mot Kedoshim. In this week's Parsha, there's a really famous Ramban that's worth contemplating. The Torah says, Daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael ve'amarta aleihem, Kedoshim tiyu, ki Kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. Hashem says to Moshe, go speak to the congregation of Israel and say to them that they shall be holy, for I, Hashem, your God, am holy. But what does it mean to be Kadosh? What does it mean, Kedoshim tiyu? So the Ramban explains that the Torah can't go ahead and cover every single possible scenario of how we're supposed to act. Instead, the Torah gives many halachot, and we are supposed to go ahead and derive values that we can from these halachot, which we can then apply to other scenarios. The halachot are supposed to give us a derech hachayim, which we then go ahead and extrapolate to other areas of our lives. For instance, says the Ramban, a person can go ahead and he can keep all the laws of kashrut. He can go ahead and prepare a feast which is 100 min 100, the best meats, the best wines, and it's all kosher. And he's sitting there, but he's a glutton, and he's overindulging in the physicality. The Ramban calls this person a naval b'reshut Torah, somebody who is disgusting with that which is permissible of the guidelines of the Torah. And the Ramban says this is an awful thing, because the Torah tells us to be Kedoshim, to go ahead and go above and beyond, to apply the values that we learn from other halachot to all aspects of our lives, even that which the Torah did not say anything explicitly about. This idea of the Ramban to go ahead and expound and go above and beyond that which is written in the Torah, we see in another famous Ramban in Dvarim. The Torah says in Perek Vav in Dvarim Pasuk Yudchet, Hasita hayashar v'hatov b'nei Hashem. You should go ahead and do what's just and right in the eyes of God. This, says the Ramban, comes after a whole series of halachot that the Torah gave, and the Torah ends and it says, you know what? Asita yashar v'hatov b'nei Hashem. After I just told you all of these things what to do, can't possibly, says the Torah, go ahead and give you every scenario. You get the general principle, now go, do just, be right. This idea of the Ramban, this worldview, is one that's taught and learned in many of our schools and yeshivot. However, there's another view, one less known but no less important. And that's the understanding of the Rambam. The Rambam, in the beginning of his Sefer Mitzvot, so he gives, before he goes into actual giving the actual list of 613 mitzvos, he gives some general rules which he's going to go ahead and use in order to determine what counts for the 613 mitzvos and what doesn't. For example, the Rambam writes that it has to be a mitzvah l'dor. It can't be a mitzvah that was only for a specific generation. Hashem told the Dor Midbar in the desert to do something specific, but it was only for that generation, so that's not a mitzvah. That's not one of the 613. They had to do it because Hashem told them, but it doesn't count as one of the 613. In rule number 4, the Rambam writes that there cannot be a mitzvah to go ahead and do another mitzvah. There's no double dipping. That would also explain why the Rambam says there's no mitzvah to do tshuva, seemingly. If I have to go ahead and stop eating pork because I was eating pork, so that's not a mitzvah of tshuva. That's called stop eating pork because you were eating pork. Right? You can't double dip and say, well, now you have to do the mitzvah of tshuva of stopping to do what you should have stopped to do before. Vidui, yes, there might be a mitzvah for that. There is a mitzvah for that, but not tshuva according to the Rambam. In any event, bringing this back to our case, so the Rambam explains that Kedoshim tiyu is not a mitzvah. You know why it's not a mitzvah? Because all Kedoshim tiyu is telling you is a matter of fact. If you go ahead and fulfill all the mitzvot in the Torah exactly as they are stated, then you will be Kadosh. You will be holy. There's no above and beyond. This is a set recipe. Do exactly what's in the Torah and you will be Kadosh. Where does this idea of the Rambam come from? What is it based on? So it's based on the Rambam's understanding of ethics and virtue. So the Rambam was an advocate of Aristotle's golden mean, which in essence was a theory of ethics, which says that the most prized character trait is always in the middle. To go to either extreme is always going to be bad. You have to always be in the middle. However, says the Rambam, and this he explains in Shmona Prakim, there could be at times a person, who naturally leans toward one of the extremes. So it's hard for him to be in the mean. So says the Rambam, what should a person do? If he leans towards this extreme, what he should do is go ahead and set himself on this side of the extreme, on this side of the mean, towards this extreme, and naturally, since he's inclined the other way, he'll end up right in the middle. And this is the path the Rambam says for virtue ethics. Now the Rambam explains that the Torah has already done this for us. The Torah understands human nature, and therefore has set laws which are going to go ahead and offset us within the spectrum so that we always end up in the golden means. Accordingly, it would be ridiculous to go ahead and go above and beyond. If the Torah tells you to do X, Y, and Z, so that's a set recipe for success. Don't mess around with the ingredients. It's right there. According to the Ramban, it's a plane that's going up, right? The Torah sets us up on a path, and we're supposed to continue that until we keep on going. There is no end. But according to the Rambam, the Torah is a set recipe, right? And we have to follow that set recipe in order to end up in the golden means. And there are many practical ramifications and philosophical implications for this deep debate between the Rambam and the Ramban in terms of the essence of the laws of the Torah. But what's agreed upon by both camps is that the Torah is meant to impact us. It's meant to make a difference in who we are. It's supposed to influence us and help us develop into the best versions of ourselves that we can be. And to really be Kadosh, in the end of the day, means to take that point to heart. Shabbat Shalom from Bnei Akiva Schools.